The California afternoon sunlight sparkled as it reflected off the chandeliers in the Grand Pacific Hotel. Standing in front of the dressing room mirror, I felt a flutter of excitement in my heart as I applied my lipstick one final time. Today was my sister Jessica's wedding day. Jessica had finally found her soulmate, and I was filled with joy, wanting to celebrate her from the bottom of my heart. "Maggie, are you ready?" My husband Robert called out as he knocked on the door. His voice carried its usual gentleness, mixed with the nervous tension that comes with important occasions. "Just 2 more minutes," I replied, giving myself a final check in the mirror. The navy blue dress Jessica had chosen for me, saying, "This color suits you best," was simple yet elegant. Robert entered the room. His physique, honed from years as a firefighter, looked even more striking in his well-tailored suit. We'd been married for 12 years, but my heart still skipped a beat whenever I saw him. "You look absolutely beautiful," he said, placing his hands on my shoulders. "Jessica must look stunning today too." "I'm sure she does. Yesterday at the rehearsal, she gave me just a glimpse of her wedding dress, and it was truly breathtaking." I turned to look into his eyes. Robert's gentle brown eyes always held that unchanging love. We didn't have children, but our days together were completely fulfilling. "Do you think David is a good man?" I asked with a hint of concern. "Yes, I spoke with him at dinner last night. He's honest and intelligent. He talked passionately about running his restaurant, and most importantly, his eyes were gentle when he looked at Jessica." Robert's words reassured me. Jessica had struggled with relationships in her younger years, and I'd always worried about her. But this time was different. Since meeting David, Jessica seemed much more settled and happy than before. "When you're ready, could you head to the chapel first? I want to check on Jessica one last time before I join you." "Sure. But don't get too emotional and cry. You'll ruin your beautiful makeup." Robert said this with playful laughter. It was true, I was prone to tears. Whether watching movies or reading books, I'd tear up at any touching scene. Today, I was certain I'd cry during the vows. Walking down the hallway to the bridal suite, I traced through childhood memories. I had been an introverted child who loved reading, while Jessica was lively and sociable, always surrounded by friends. At school, at community events, she was always the center of attention. Dad always praised Jessica's social skills. "Jessie has a special charm that draws people to her," he'd often tell Mom. Meanwhile, I was usually described as, "Maggie is serious and hardworking, but she could use more initiative." After Dad passed away 5 years ago, Jessica and I grew closer than we'd ever been. As adults walking our own paths, the childhood competitiveness had naturally faded. Especially after spending Dad's final days together, we'd come to appreciate the importance of family bonds. When I knocked on the bridal suite door, I heard Mom's voice from inside. "Margaret? Come in, dear." Entering the room, I saw a bride more beautiful than I could have imagined. Jessica's wedding dress was a classic design with delicate lace accents on silk satin, perfectly highlighting her natural beauty. "Jessie, you look absolutely gorgeous." My voice trembled slightly with emotion. Jessica turned and smiled. Her smile held that special radiance that only truly happy women possess. "Thank you, Maggie. You look wonderful too." Mom, making final adjustments, said, "You both look so beautiful. Your father must be watching over this day from heaven." The 3 of us held hands and shared a quiet moment together. The chapel at the Grand Pacific Hotel was decorated like a scene from a movie. White roses and calla lily bouquets adorned the altar, and crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling sparkled in rainbow colors under the afternoon sunlight. Over 100 guests sat quietly, waiting for the ceremony to begin in the solemn atmosphere. I sat next to Robert, looking around while holding the program. Relatives from both Dad's and Mom's sides, along with friends of the bride and groom, had gathered to celebrate this special day. Mom sat in the front row, occasionally dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. She must have been feeling lonely that Dad wasn't there. "Those are Jessica's college friends over there," Robert whispered to me. They were dressed in beautiful gowns, chatting with affection for the bride. Jessica had been popular since her student days and had maintained close relationships with many friends after graduation. I truly admired that about her. When the organ began to play, the entire venue fell silent. David took his place at the altar with the minister. He looked a bit nervous, but his expression was filled with deep love and determination. He was a man with quiet charm who had also achieved success as a restaurant owner. I could understand why Jessica had chosen him. The music announcing the bride's entrance began. As everyone in the venue turned around, first the bridesmaids walked down the aisle beautifully. Then, finally, Jessica appeared, supported by Mom's arm. I gasped. Though I'd thought she looked beautiful in the dressing room, seeing my sister in the sacred atmosphere of the chapel surpassed even that beauty. The train of her dress spread gracefully across the floor, and her veil fluttered gently with each step. Mom walked with pride and perhaps a touch of melancholy as she held Jessica's arm. As Jessica walked down the aisle, she smiled at each guest. When our eyes met, she gave me an especially warm smile. In that moment, tears nearly spilled from my eyes. My sister looked so truly happy, and I was overjoyed. When she reached David, Mom placed Jessica's hand in his. The moment they gazed at each other touched everyone in the venue. There was that special glow that only two people in love possess. The minister solemnly began the ceremony. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to celebrate the marriage of David Harrison and Jessica Winston." As the minister's words echoed through the venue, I remembered Jessica as a child. I could see her playing dress-up in a toy wedding dress, holding wedding ceremonies with her dolls. Even then, she'd harbored dreams of marriage. And now, finally, that dream was becoming reality. "David Harrison, do you take Jessica Winston to be your wife, to love, honor, comfort, and keep her in sickness and in health, in prosperity and adversity, and forsaking all others, be faithful to her as long as you both shall live?" "I do." David's voice was strong and full of conviction. Tears glistened in his eyes too. "Jessica Winston, do you take David Harrison to be your husband, to love, honor, comfort, and keep him in sickness and in health, in prosperity and adversity, and forsaking all others, be faithful to him as long as you both shall live?" "I do." Jessica's voice was clear and rang beautifully. Her expression held deep love along with hope for her new life. The ring exchange began. David placed the ring on Jessica's finger with trembling hands. "Jessica, receive this ring as a sign of my love and commitment, and as a symbol that I have chosen you above all others. I will love you until God parts us." Jessica did the same, placing the ring on David's finger. "David, receive this ring as a sign of my love and commitment, and as a symbol that I have chosen you above all others. I will love you until God parts us." I squeezed Robert's hand beside me. He was moved too and gently squeezed back. He might have been remembering our own wedding. 12 years ago in spring, our ceremony in a small church had been filled with love just like today. When the minister spoke his final words, the venue was enveloped in silence. Then, with the words, "You may kiss the bride," they shared their first kiss as husband and wife. The venue erupted in applause and cheers. I clapped with all my might while tears streamed down my face. I was genuinely happy that Jessica had found true happiness in marriage. As the newlyweds made their exit, the guests stood and gave them congratulatory applause. When Jessica passed by me, she gave me a special wave. Her smile was that of a woman experiencing the happiest moment of her life. After the ceremony, guests moved to the hotel lobby for cocktail hour. The venue was decorated with beautiful flower arrangements, and champagne and hors d'oeuvres were served. "It really was a beautiful ceremony," Robert said, champagne in hand. "Yes, it was perfect." Jessie looked so truly happy, it made me happy just watching her. Through the window, we watched the newlyweds' photo session taking place in the garden. Jessica's dress, illuminated by the sunset, made her look as beautiful as an angel. "Did you speak with David's mother?" I asked. "Yes, she's a very refined woman. She was so pleased about her son's marriage. She said she already thinks of Jessica as a daughter." Hearing this gave me even more peace of mind. Marriage isn't just between two people, it's a joining of families. When both families can accept each other and interact with love, the couple's married life will surely be richer. Mom came over to us. Her eyes were still moist with tears. "Margaret, Robert, thank you so much for today. Your father must be pleased too." "It really was a beautiful ceremony," I said, taking Mom's hand. Jessica looked so happy, and that's what matters most. "David is a wonderful man too, I'm sure they'll build a good home together," Robert added kindly. As cocktail hour drew to a close, guests began being directed to the reception venue. The grand ballroom was decorated even more lavishly than the chapel. Each round table was adorned with roses of different colors, and the gentle glow of candles warmly illuminated the entire venue. We were seated at the family table. Mom, Robert, and I, along with David's parents and siblings, sat at the same table. Soon the newlyweds would make their entrance and the reception would begin. "I'm so excited," I smiled at Robert. "Yes, it's going to be a wonderful evening," he replied, holding my hand. As elegant music filled the grand ballroom, the newlyweds entered hand in hand. The guests gave them a standing ovation, and the venue was filled with a warm atmosphere of celebration. Jessica had changed into a different reception dress, more comfortable for movement, yet still elegant. David was beaming, tenderly holding his new wife's hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, we sincerely thank you for gathering here today to celebrate our marriage," David's speech began. His voice reached every corner of the venue, and his sincere character could be felt in every word. "Meeting Jessica has been the greatest fortune of my life. I was captivated by her kindness, intelligence, and beauty, and every day brought new discoveries. Starting today, we begin our new life as husband and wife. With your warm support, we promise to build a home filled with love." As applause filled the venue, Jessica also took the microphone. "Everyone, thank you so much for celebrating this special day with us. I especially want to thank my mother and my sister Margaret for all their help with today's preparations. It's sad that my father isn't here, but I believe he's watching over us from heaven." I felt tears welling up. Whenever Dad was mentioned, emotions always overflowed like this. Robert placed his hand on my shoulder, gently comforting me. "And David," Jessica continued, gazing at her new husband, "meeting you completely changed my life. With your love supporting me, I was able to become my true self. I am truly happy to be able to walk through life with you from now on." After the speeches, preparations for the toast began. Waiters circulated among the tables, pouring champagne. Golden bubbles danced in my glass as it was filled. "Ladies and gentlemen, please raise your glasses," the master of ceremonies announced as everyone in the venue stood and raised their glasses. I also stood with Robert and directed my glass toward the distant newlyweds. "To David and Jessica's everlasting happiness, cheers." Cheers. A great cheer rose from the entire venue, and the beautiful sound of clinking glasses could be heard. I sipped my champagne while praying sincerely for my sister's happiness. In that moment, I felt the special nature of this day anew. After the toast, it was time for dinner. The hotel chef's carefully prepared course meal would be served table by table. I looked at the menu card while seated. From appetizers through soup, fish, meat, and dessert, a luxurious spread was described. "What a wonderful menu," I said to Mom beside me. Yes, Jessica and David went through many tastings to choose this. The beef Wellington main course is especially David's favorite. I wonder if it's a popular menu at his restaurant too. It seems so. We should go eat there sometime. While enjoying conversation with Mom, the waiter brought the appetizer. Beautifully plated smoked salmon canapés and colorful vegetable tranche were placed before me. Both beautiful to look at and elegantly aromatic, truly worthy of the Grand Pacific Hotel's cuisine. The table conversation was lively too. David's parents were warm-hearted people, and their chat with Mom was pleasant. David's brother also had a cheerful personality and entertained us with interesting stories from the restaurant industry. I hadn't enjoyed such a relaxed meal atmosphere in a long time. After the appetizer, soup was served. The corn and lobster bisque was creamy with an elegant flavor. Robert also said, "This is delicious," while eating with satisfaction. "The fish course is next," I said with anticipation. But then it happened. Robert, who had been watching the waiters bring the fish course from the kitchen, suddenly changed expression. The color drained from his face and his eyes became sharp. It was like when his professional instincts kicked in upon detecting danger at a fire scene. "What's wrong?" I asked quietly. But Robert didn't answer my question, continuing to watch the kitchen direction carefully. His hand unconsciously gripped the edge of the table, and I could see tension running through his entire body. A waiter approached our table. It was a beautiful dish of sautéed white fish with lemon butter sauce. Other guests were exclaiming over the dish's beauty, but Robert was different. He stared at my plate with eyes that seemed to be confirming something. Then, just as I was about to pick up my fork, Robert suddenly leaned close to my ear. "We're leaving right now." His voice was low, like a firefighter announcing an emergency. "Right now." "What? What's wrong?" I stared at him in confusion. Other tables were all enjoying their meals happily. Why did we suddenly need to leave? I couldn't understand at all. "I'll explain in the car." Robert didn't answer my question but stood up and gently yet firmly pulled my arm. His eyes held a strong will that left no room for argument. "But the food is later. Right now." I looked around. Mom was engrossed in conversation with someone at the next table and hadn't noticed our distress. The newlyweds were also chatting happily at their table. No one seemed to think it strange that we were suddenly getting up. Urged by Robert, I stood up. He took my hand and headed for the venue exit as inconspicuously as possible. I still couldn't understand what was happening and followed him in confusion. As we left the venue, I turned back to look at Jessica. She was smiling at a distant table, but for a moment, I thought she glanced our way. However, she quickly returned to conversation with others. Through the hotel lobby and down the elevator to the parking garage, Robert didn't say a word. His expression was serious, like a firefighter carrying out an important mission. I stood beside him, suppressing my urge to ask questions. Reaching the parking garage, Robert took out his car keys while guiding me to the passenger seat. Usually he was gentlemanly about opening my door, but this time he quickly got into the driver's seat himself. Starting the engine, he let out a deep sigh. Then, turning to me with an expression of disbelief, he said, "Did you really not notice?" His voice carried relief along with the weight of harboring some grave secret. The silence in the car deepened my confusion. "Notice what?" "Robert, what on earth happened?" But instead of answering, he put the car in drive. As the hotel's lights receded behind us, I began to feel an ominous premonition deep in my heart. What should have been a joyful wedding was somehow ending this way. Robert's profile still seemed to be trying to sort something out. I could only wait quietly until he was ready to speak. Inside the car, only the engine's sound and our breathing echoed. After driving for a few minutes from the hotel, the car stopped on the shoulder in a quiet residential area. Robert turned off the engine and remained silent for a while, staring at his hands gripping the steering wheel. Streetlight illuminated the car interior, casting complex shadows across his face. "Robert, please tell me. What happened? My voice trembled with anxiety. I'd never seen my husband like this before. Usually he would explain anything calmly and gently, but tonight was different. He took a deep breath and slowly turned toward me. Maggie, you must be wondering why I rushed you out before you could eat tonight. Of course. You suddenly said, "We're leaving right now," without explaining why. Do you remember your peanut allergy? The sudden question caught me off guard. Of course I remember. But what does that have to do with tonight? I told the hotel about my allergy in advance, and Jessie said she'd be careful about it too. Robert looked pained. That wasn't the case. What do you mean? What I saw was. He began speaking carefully, choosing his words. Before the kitchen staff brought the food to the tables, Jessica was talking with the chef. At first I thought it was just normal conversation. But watching closely, she was pointing to a specific plate. My heart began racing. A specific plate. Your plate, Maggie. Jessica confirmed your seat number and gave the chef some kind of instruction. Then the chef took out a small bottle. A small bottle. It was peanut oil. Robert's voice was shaking. As a firefighter, I've seen many food allergy emergencies. That bottle's shape, the label's color, there's no mistake. She was instructing him to add peanut oil to your food. I was speechless. I tried to process the information in my head, but I couldn't accept it as reality. That's impossible. Jessie would never try to harm me. It must be some misunderstanding. Maybe it was some special seasoning or something. Maggie. Robert took my hand. We know how severe your peanut allergy is. Do you remember when you were rushed to the hospital? A few years ago, when you accidentally ate food cooked with peanut oil at a restaurant? I remembered. I nearly died that time. Difficulty breathing, hives all over my body, plummeting blood pressure. I almost lost consciousness before reaching the hospital. The doctor said, if we'd been any later, it could have been life-threatening. But why? Why would Jessie do such a thing to me? Robert pulled some papers from the dashboard. Actually, there's been something bothering me lately. Do you remember when I talked with Jessica last month about your father's will? Yes, I thought it was just notification that the legal procedures were complete. At that time, something she said stuck with me. She asked, what would happen to the inheritance if something happened to Maggie? I gasped. That means your father's will indeed lists you as the primary beneficiary. 70% of the total assets go to you, 30% to Jessica. Robert continued his explanation. But there's also a clause stating if the primary beneficiary dies first, the full amount goes to the remaining heir. In my mind, all the puzzle pieces began fitting together. So if I died, Jessica would inherit everything. Silence dominated the car interior. But why did Dad leave me more of the inheritance? Robert looked at me gently. Because you devotedly cared for your father during his final 10 years. Accompanying him to medical appointments 3 times a week, supporting his daily life, and during his last 2 years, you even adjusted your work schedule to be by his side. That was true. After Dad's illness worsened, I devoted most of my life to caring for him. Robert had cooperated without a single complaint. Jessica never once came to visit, I said quietly. She always had reasons, too busy, work commitments. Your father saw your devotion. That's why he tried to reward it in his will. Tears began flowing. What had started as care born from love for my father had ended up earning my sister's resentment. That's not all, Robert continued. Something David said in conversation bothered me. I don't think he realized what he was saying, but Jessica had apparently talked about wanting to expand into a restaurant chain with my sister's inheritance. Restaurant chain. David didn't seem to understand what your inheritance meant, but thinking about it now. I shuddered. Jessica had already planned that far ahead. After my death, she planned to use my inheritance to expand the business with her husband. Tonight's plan was perfect, Robert said bitterly. At a glamorous wedding, an unfortunate accident from food allergies. No one would suspect anything. The car was again enveloped in silence. I stared at my hands, trying to accept reality. My sister, whom I loved and trusted, had tried to kill me. For money. Robert, I finally spoke. If you hadn't been there, I would have. I won't let anything happen to you, he squeezed my hand firmly. Protecting you is my mission. What should we do now? Robert took out his cell phone. First, I'll make an anonymous report to the hotel. That there's suspicion someone deliberately added allergens to a guest's food who has food allergies. And then, gather evidence. Record tonight's events in detail, and take legal action if necessary. I nodded. It was a painful decision, but I had to do the right thing. Maggie, Robert looked at me. You have a real family. People who love and protect you. Blood relation alone doesn't make family. At his words, I was able to smile for the first time tonight. Indeed, Robert was my true family. And the friends who truly loved me too. As he started the car, Robert said, "Let's spend tonight quietly at home. Tomorrow we'll sort everything out." I nodded while gazing at the city lights flowing past the window. My feelings for Jessica wouldn't disappear easily, but knowing the truth, I had to protect my own life. And I had to move forward on a new path with the people who truly loved me. 3 weeks had passed since then. Due to Robert's report, an anomaly was discovered in the hotel kitchen, and the wedding was interrupted midway. It was officially announced as suspected food poisoning, but in reality, peanut oil had been detected in my food. Jessica's plan was completely exposed. Hotel security cameras clearly recorded her giving instructions to the chef. Furthermore, messages were found on her phone discussing specific plans with David about expanding the restaurant business with my sister's inheritance. When David learned the truth, he came to apologize to me with a pale face. I didn't know anything. If I had known, I absolutely would have stopped it. His words were sincere, and I decided to believe him. He too was a victim deceived by Jessica. "I'm proceeding with divorce," David said when he visited our home a few days later. "I can't begin married life this way. The fact that Jessica was using me to try to harm you." There was deep sadness in his eyes. The reality that the woman he thought he loved was actually a completely different person must have been a great shock for him too. I haven't spoken directly with Jessica herself yet. She's trying to make contact through lawyers, but I'm not ready for that yet. The pain of sisterly bonds built over many years crumbling in one night wasn't something that would heal easily. When Mom learned the facts, she could barely eat for about 2 days. Then, through tears, she apologized to me. "Margaret, I doted on Jessica and failed to understand your feelings. Even when you were caring for your father, I relied entirely on you and never asked anything of Jessica. That led to this result." I embraced Mom while saying, "It's not your fault, Mom. This was Jessie's choice. All we can do now is cherish each other going forward." Currently, Jessica is charged with attempted murder. Her lawyer is claiming temporary insanity, but the evidence of premeditated crime is too clear for that argument to likely succeed. My daily life is gradually returning to its former peace. My work as a real estate agent is going smoothly, and Robert continues to support me as always. But the biggest change is that my gratitude toward the people around me has deepened. Last week, my longtime friend Sarah visited our home. When she heard about the incident, she said, "Blood relations don't matter. The people who truly love you are your real family." She was absolutely right. Robert, of course, but also Sarah and other friends, workplace colleagues, neighbors. The people who genuinely care for and support me, they are my true family. This morning, while making breakfast with Robert in the kitchen, I said, "If you hadn't been there that night, I wouldn't be here now. You're the most precious person to me." "I'm truly glad I could protect you," he replied, putting his arm around my shoulder. Outside the window, a new day was beginning. I took a deep breath. Though it was a painful experience, it taught me what was truly important. Heart connections over blood relations. Pure love over self-interest. My life continues. This time, building deeper bonds with people who truly love me. And someday, when the time comes, perhaps I'll be able to forgive Jessica. But for now, I want to cherish myself and the people who protected me.